So just a little bit of background for this webinar. If you're participating in this recording, if you're watching this recording today, we did do another webinar on this new release from Student Achievement Partners back in August. There were some technical issues with that. We did do that one live. We had breakout rooms. But there was a broken link and folks were having trouble accessing that webinar. So the recording that you're watching today, in case you're wondering and we're part of the original webinar, this is the new recording just to give an overview of the content. So I'm just gonna move right along here. While I'm chatting here, Deb is gonna drop the link in the email, or sorry, in the chat. If you would like to access the document as we're kind of talking through some pieces of it, please feel free to do so. We also have it linked in the PowerPoint, and this is also up on the Launch Nebraska website. I'm gonna just start here with just giving you a little bit of overview on who Student Achievement Partners is. The Essential Instructional Content document for ELA and mathematics is, the original is a resource from Student Achievement Partners. They are a nonprofit organization. Their mission is simple. Their stated mission is just to improve student achievement, however and wherever they can. They do a lot of support work with districts, with states, with different regions, directly with educators. They also develop a lot of high quality standards aligned instructional materials and resources that are freely able to be used. All of their, none of their stuff is proprietary, so it can be accessed by anyone who wishes to use their materials. So if you're on today, I would encourage you to explore and kind of see what they have to offer. They've also done a fabulous job of really creating a lot of resources in real time as we all respond to the pandemic that we're currently finding ourselves in. So please do explore Student Achievement Partners. Okay, so kind of setting some context for where we're at with releasing this 2021 Essential Instructional Content. So as you know, last spring, there were widespread and eventually statewide closures of school buildings, and that has really impacted teaching and learning. And now into the fall, I know a lot of our Nebraska schools are in person, some are all remote, some have hybrid models. So we know that student learning is being negatively impacted. We also know that our school districts and systems across the state have not had time to prepare for the demands and the challenges that are being imposed upon us all during this time. Also thinking about access to technology, I think this is a nationwide concern, certainly not just in Nebraska, but thinking about Nebraska, especially in some of our more remote rural areas and even in our large urban centers. It's really hard for some of our students to access technology or to access it reliably. That has affected carrying out remote learning. And then of course, remote learning environments can have a more dramatic impact on students with disabilities and English learners for a variety of reasons. So for all of these reasons kind of listed here, and of course there are more beyond the pages of this slide, we know that there are challenges that need to be addressed with some specialized support. So that's kind of what this webinar is about. NWA, as you know, is our statewide summative assessment vendor. They released a study a couple months ago and found that there's a 30% unfinished learning in ELA and then 50% in math. So we know that students are being impacted when they don't have regular access to instruction. So we have a little text here from the TNTP, which formerly known as the New Teacher Project. Remediation won't help students catch up. Here's what will. And she says, left unchecked, it's an academic setback that could derail the futures of even students who were previously on grade level and would be disastrous for students who were already behind. So you can kind of see in this messaging that the supports that we're providing right now for content for those students are just essential. They're critically important right now. And I like this quote because I feel like it really helps set the stage for why we need to, I don't want to use the word prioritize because we're not prioritizing standards, but what content for ELA and mathematics needs to be prioritized right now. Okay, so our session today, we're going to focus on content instructional priorities, as I just mentioned, for the coming academic year. And I just want to underscore that although we're talking about this information, these priorities are in direct response to unfinished learning, that I think you'll find, as Deb and I did as we were working on the adaptations of this document, that there's a lot of really enduring kind of theoretical information in these documents. For example, with ELA, just, you know, keeping text at the center. So I hope that you all will use this resource to respond to current unfinished learning, but also keeping it at front and center as we return back to a more normal situation. Okay, so really this next bullet point kind of addresses who this guidance is for, and student achievement partners kind of laid out in the beginning kind of who the audience was for this, and it's really directed at district math and literacy leaders, of course state education agencies, staff developers, people who directly support teachers and support school systems in really helping them think through what content is essential as we try to remediate the learning that we know has been lost. So I just wanted to, I have a quote here, kind of it does a nice job of framing the essential instructional content, but I just wanted to highlight that for both math and ELA, it is really about providing grade level content. I think it's a little bit dangerous ground to use a method where we're actually giving below grade level work in terms of remediating. I think it's sometimes we default to the, well, I got to get them caught up on what they missed from the fourth quarter, or, you know, kids aren't strong in a certain skill from the previous grade level or 2 grade levels behind. But it really is about being strategic about still providing grade level content, but then looking for opportunities to fill in some of those gaps. So I've highlighted here just the importance of grade level content for both of those content areas. Some of our partner organizations have released kind of similar little models for how we might remediate unfinished learning. So you'll see on the left hand there, it says this is the do, it's a do and don't. So do this for 2020, 2021. And that's to look at providing grade level content, but embedding within that grade level content supports to address lost learning. So that's in direct contrast to what you see on the right, which is your don't do, is going back and reteaching Q4 before we move into grade level work. So it really is about, you know, thinking about smattering in those supports and those interventions in some cases as it applies to reading while still moving ahead so that students aren't getting even further behind in the scenario on the right. Okay, so I'm going to move into just some more specific information about this actual document. And again, hopefully you've been, if you're watching this recording, you're able to access the full document and kind of follow along as we go through pieces of it. But one of the first things that we did was we separated out the math and ELA. When SAP, Student Achievement Partners, released the original full version, it had math and ELA together. It was quite a long and cumbersome document, so we thought that we would lighten the load a little bit and separate that into two shorter documents. We did do an alignment to Nebraska, for ELA, the 2014 standards, and for math, the 2015. The original full text document is aligned to Common Core state standards. And then we just went in and did a Nebraska alignment. So you will find that information for each grade or grade band. We did put some text right at the beginning, some information for Nebraska educators. It explains how we did the standards alignment, why that's a legitimate alignment in terms of how our standards are aligned to Common Core. And then we really talked about our instructional shifts for each content area. We also, in terms of usability, we just did some color coding. So the ELA document is in grade bands, and there's a color for each grade band. It just helps you follow along because it does tend to get a little bit lengthy, and you do tend to get lost as you're going through the many pages. So. All right, so just to talk a little bit, I'm going to talk about ELA, and then Deb's going to go on and talk about some of the mathematics. Again, this is just kind of a broad overview of how the document is structured and how you can use it. But for ELA, the essential instructional content is by grade band. So you have a K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and then they've grouped the 9 to 12 grades together. So what you'll see in this actual document in each of those sections is the instructional practices and content that are best exemplified by, they've identified 14 Common Core English Language Arts standards, and of course we've gone in and aligned to ours. What you'll also see, something that our current Nebraska standards do not do, is recommend lexile ranges by grade band. So when you're thinking about what kind of text you want to engage students with, it's going to recommend lexile ranges, and of course those are all appropriate to the grade level and to the grade band. I just wanted to take a moment to show a graphic that you'll see in a couple of different places in the ELA document. But if I had to sum up what this guidance was really about, it's really about keeping grade level text at the center of what we do. It is not about prioritizing certain standards. It's not about ignoring certain standards. This is really about when we keep grade level text at the center of our instruction, we read grade level text, we write about grade level text, we discuss grade level text. You actually are accomplishing more than if you're not keeping text at the center, because that's where the really rich instruction happens, is around that text. So text always at the center. You'll see over on the left, building knowledge in content areas. We always want that, the goal of our instruction to be helping students be able to access even more complex text, because they come in with some sort of knowledge base from previous text experiences. We want them to be doing close reading of complex text. You'll see foundational skills down there at the bottom. I won't probably touch on that too much, but just know that there is a K1 and 2, 3. There are those grade bands in the document, and it does give guidance on how to remediate some of that unfinished learning. And then I love just the arrow kind of wrapping around this whole model here. Every single section, and I believe this is the same for the math document as well, addresses social, emotional, and academic needs of students. And I'll show you an example of what that kind of looks like. And just one more comment about this particular graphic. I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation that this guidance was released, you know, as an immediate response to the to school closures and unfinished learning. But this is really where I think there's a lot of enduring value in the information that's presented here, and it's just about keeping complex text at the center. How we use content to address social emotional needs, the importance of foundational skills. So I'm a big fan of this model. And I'm just gonna, actually at this point, before Deb goes into her sharing, I just wanted to show you briefly, and I need to toggle screens here. I wanted to show everybody kind of what the actual document looks like, and I'm just going to give you a really quick walkthrough of one of the sections. Deb, can you give me a quick okay if you see my screen here?
Yes, okay.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so just to give you a little sampling of what this looks like for ELA. So here is the 4-5 grade band, and it's literacy considerations for this school year. As you can see, it's color coded, so the grade 4-5 band is that nice purple color. But what it's divided into sections here. So regular close reading of grade level, complex, anchor text. And so underneath there's some considerations, some bulleted items, and as promised, they're giving you a Lexile range for that grade band. So the low end 740, the high end 1010. Of course, keeping in mind that the Lexile is the quantitative measure. There are also qualitative measures that we need to consider. Sequences of text-specific questions and tasks to support the close reading. You'll see under each of these broader headings that the Common Core state standards, and then above them we've crosswalked with the Nebraska ELA standards, so that we've got systematic work with text-based vocabulary and syntax. You'll see in grades, starting in this grade band, actually, that a lot of these are the same all the way through 12. A lot of these broad categories are the same, but I just wanted to scroll down and show you every grade band section has this facilitate seed, and that stands for, from the previous slide, social, emotional, academic development through close reading of complex text. And it really gives you some pretty pointed, like, specific strategies to use with students to address some of those needs, especially in the situation that we're in. And we know that students might have some special needs, some special concerns because of everything that's transpired and continues to transpire. But just to give you an idea of what those look like, this second bullet point here: include perspective taking in the study of literary text by attending to how characters might think and feel. So that is just one way that through the content, through the rich text, we can kind of challenge our students to take that perspective, something that's really important and something, depending on the age of the student, we know can be a little bit of a challenge for them to be able to do. So that's just what one of the sections looks like. Of course, at the end, there's an abundance of research resources for you to look at if you want to read further. A lot of good, packed with a lot of good stuff. So I am going to get back to our slides. Deb, are we back on the math slide that you can see?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Let me try that again. All right, should be up now. Deb's going to talk to you a little bit about the organization of the math documents.
Yes. So there will be two documents for mathematics. Student Achievement Partners divided K-8 math standards, and then they did a separate high school math document. So the organization, as Marissa was talking about, the first document is in a K-8. And in those grade levels, again, we've got them color-coded. They are clustered around standards. They kind of have two categories in which they've indicated those standards. Ones that they say you should emphasize during this time of the changing between the two school years. And then there's some that says R and it says remaining. It just means that there's still more mathematics to learn, but there's the emphasis that should be placed on certain ones to continue their grade level learning. And I bring attention to the big thing is the verbs that they used. There's about 6 to 8 different verbs. So mathematics is a building block. So there are many times that they'll indicate that you could combine some terms so that you could make the lessons, meet each other's needs. Sometimes they say eliminate that to give you some more time. Other times to incorporate into different skill levels and make additional sequences that are happening. So to incorporate it, sometimes you can integrate it. So, and then there's some reducing, some things that maybe we do a little too much that we could probably pull back a bit. And then those verbs kind of give you an indication of how the material should be addressed during that time. So that's the organization for the K-8, and focusing again on those verbs for the descriptions. And again, we went in and aligned the Nebraska standards to the Common Core standards that they have used as a basis for their original document. The high school one is designed a little differently. It's designed by courses. So they have Algebra 1 or Beginning Algebra, Geometry, and Algebra 2 or Advanced Algebra. And then you'll also see a coding for Integrated Mathematics 1, 2, 3. In our state, we still have the traditional sequence of algebra, geometry, algebra, but there is coding for an integrated course as well. They are clustered by conceptual categories and bigger bands as you're looking for it. If you notice, there's some kind of coding. They've said the emphasis or what they're used to PEEP to emphasize or priority of the importance. There's some reducing, just the normal time that you might spend on a certain topic. Other ones you could eliminate, and there's a few dashes for the standard that may not be taught in that particular course at that time. And so then there is additional coding on the next slide that Marissa will move for us. They also have gone back and looked at some other pieces, looking at what standard might be applied as far as a prerequisite to what's happening before. So something that you should make sure that they have that understanding before going on. Modeling or making connections is a very important theme throughout our mathematics standards, and so they've indicated those. And if you're familiar with the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, Catalyzing Change, they'd recently sent out a high school document, and they also have essential contents or concepts. And so they've donated or designated that in this particular document. So keeping in mind these documents, articulate the essential content right now at this time, right? It's at this time. If this pandemic wouldn't have happened, we wouldn't have probably produced such documents. But what we want to keep in mind, as Marissa was talking about text working across her grade levels, one important thing is our Nebraska mathematical process standards, and for the Common Core, the mathematical practices, that we want to make sure that that's a priority no matter what content that you're working on. So I've listed our 4 that we've summarized, the idea of problem solving and communication, having that discourse and that productive struggle, lots of different representations and different strategies through the learning, and then those higher thinking skills and applications and connections. So no matter what content you're working with, those should be the center of how to be able to learn and teach mathematics together with your students. So that's kind of the mathematics background of the document, and currently we are working on formatting the high school, and hopefully we'll have that up as another document available to you. Thank you for the math part.
Thank you, Deb. All right, just to kind of wrap things up a little bit, just to quickly share some additional resources. We've built out quite a bit starting in the spring with the school closures. We have our Launch Nebraska site, and you can find a lot of instructional guidance. There's assessment guidance, just all kinds of things. We did an entire series of unfinished learning in mathematics, unfinished learning in ELA. So there's a whole series of webinars you can look at. We've got this document. You can see some other resources there. I would also encourage you, if it's been a while, or if you just need a refresher or you haven't seen these, but looking at Nebraska's key instructional shifts for ELA math and science content. We touched a little bit on those shifts, and they have a lot of bearing on this guidance here. We also have our entire website. The Nebraska Instructional Materials Collaborative has tons of resources on the role of high quality instruction materials, especially as you're thinking about delivering remote instruction. Sometimes that can be really challenging if your materials are maybe a little bit dated, not standards aligned. So lots more information there. And you'll also find this webinar, of course, and the PowerPoint slides and the document itself lives there. Here is the link in these slides. Just click on there and you'll get access to both of those. And just a final thank you for joining us today, for wanting to learn more. As we move ahead these next months, of course this recording is taking place in September, we are looking at more specific kind of learning opportunities around these new resources. So kind of keep on the lookout for those. We'll have those posted to the Nebraska, the Launch Nebraska website as well. Please feel free to contact any of us. Corey Epler is our academic officer for the Office of Teaching, Learning, and Assessment. There's my email address up there, and then Deb's, of course, too. If you have any specific questions about this guidance, please don't hesitate to reach out. Any parting thoughts, Deb?
No, thank you for partnering with me today. And I think schools should just look as another resource, and for them to be able to help support their learning throughout this next year, no matter what it is, remotely or in the classroom. And we just wish that all of you stay safe and healthy for this upcoming school year.
Yes, thank you very much, everybody, and let us know if you need any further assistance.